George Russell is 9 points down, and David Coulthard says it's now a war zone inside Mercedes. The FIA will meet on Wednesday to fix 2026 qualifying. Hulkenberg missed points by a lockup, and Honda's president said a prayer before Japan. It's Saturday, the 4th of April, 2026. Coffee Corner Motorsport, Espresso News. Let's get right into it. George Russell goes into the break 9 points behind teammate Kimi Antonelli in the Drivers' Championship. He won Australia, but of course, Kimi bounced back by winning both China and Japan. The momentum has shifted inside Mercedes. Now, David Coulthard addressed this directly on the Up to Speed podcast this week. He said, if I were George Russell, this is now a war zone. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Now, Racing 365 and Motorsport.com both covered the comments. Coulthard went even further, saying that George Russell needs to start eroding Kimi Antonelli's confidence. His argument is quite simple. Kimi is growing with every single race. 2 wins in 3 race starts in 2026. The youngest championship leader in the history of the sport, and he's not flinching. He's just getting started. The reference point that David Coulthard used is, of course, last year's battle between the 2 McLaren drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, who were both, of course, in that championship-capable car. A dynamic that started quite civil, but it became something else as the season progressed and they battled it out. His reading is that Mercedes are already at that point after just 3 races. Toto Wolff has come out quite publicly and said that both drivers have equal status within the team. He's referred to Antonelli as just a kid after China, but David Coulthard's point is that George Russell cannot afford to see it that way anymore. He's been the senior Mercedes driver for a number of years now, and this was, of course, supposed to be his moment. And instead, we've got a 19-year-old already leading the championship. They both got the same goal. They both want that championship. They got the same garage, the same car. Warzone or not, they both have to show up in Miami, and both know that they must just have the best chance of winning the championship they've ever had. On the technical side of the paddock, there is a debate that will not wait until then, and that is, of course, the April the 9th meeting between the teams, the FIA and the Formula 1 management. It's got one clear agenda item, according to Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal. He told the media in Japan that qualifying is priority number 1 in terms of what needs fixing in the 2026 regulations. Now, the race has reported qualifying topped an earlier post-China meeting between team bosses and the FIA that was held prior to the Japanese Grand Prix. The broad agreement in the paddock is that it needs urgent attention. Andrea Stella's specific example was Degner 1 at Suzuka. One of those corners that drivers have talked about for years, the commitment, the margin between getting it right and getting it wrong. His words were quite direct. At the moment, going through Degner 1, you think about the battery, not the grip. Your thoughts are dominated by the battery and energy saving. That is what qualifying has become. Lifting and coasting, super clipping, managing charge state rather than attacking the circuit. The hope is, of course, that something can be agreed before Miami. The race has outlined options being discussed, including raising the super clipping limit from 250 kilowatts to 350 to reduce the need for lifting and coasting. Nothing is, of course, confirmed. The meeting is set for Wednesday. Andrea Stella's language was measured, but his intention was not. I've also just released an article over on coffeecornermotorsport.com outlining what are those options that the FIA, Formula 1 are going to be looking at before, of course, Miami. However, not everyone in the paddock sees the new regulations in the same light. Pierre Gasly qualified P7 at Suzuka ahead of Max Verstappen, and he thinks the conversation about the 2026 regulations has gone further than what the facts actually support. Motorsport.com and Crash.net both covered his comments, which were made in light of the Japanese Grand Prix. Now, his position is not that there is nothing to fix. He agrees on qualifying. He also agrees on energy management. But his pushback is on the broader claim that driver skill no longer makes a difference. He went on to say, I think, honestly, there's a bit too much negativity around it, and I don't like it. His argument is quite specific. He says that in Sector 1 at Suzuka, with a given grip level, the battery limits do not remove the need to be at the absolute limit of what the car gives you. The drivers who extract more from available grips still come out ahead, and he said he believes in Formula 1 and trusts the people making the decisions. I'm sure we do what's best, is what he said to the press. It's worth also noting the context, though. Gasly is one of the standout performers of the early 2026 season. Alpine has obviously switched that Mercedes power unit, and they also committed to these new regulations earlier, switching off development in their 2025 car. He's in a car and with an engine that suits this formula. His view on whether driving skill matters is shaped by the fact that his skill is currently making the car work. Others, they're not in the same position. Both things can be true, but you've also got to bear that in mind when the drivers are making these comments. Back to the points battle and a driver who nearly found himself in the points in Japan. Audi's Nico Hulkenberg finished P11 in Japan, one place outside the points, roughly 1 second off the driver in P10. Formula One's official site covered those post-race comments. The race started badly. He qualified 13th. A poor getaway dropped him back down to 19th on the opening lap. He then spent the entire afternoon fighting back through traffic. Got to P11, just missed out on P10 in points. The qualifying story, though, is the one that matters here, the sharper one with Audi. Now, Hulkenberg had the race pace for Q3 at Suzuka, was running ahead of Hamilton and Russell at one stage in Q1. He was actually running in P6. Now, the race covered his Q2 in detail, a lock-up in the final sector. His description of it was very brief. A cheeky little lock-up knocked me out and ended up in P13. He told Formula One's media team that the start compromised everything. It was just a really poor start, which is quite compromising for the rest of the race, being in quite heavy traffic. He also confirmed that Audi had plenty to work on during the break and is treating this upcoming break as preparation time to get on top of the problems that they've identified. Now, his teammate Gabriele Bortoleto had the same problem. Qualified P9, finished P13, both Audi drivers losing positions off the line in every single race this season. The race pace is almost there. The launch control, it's just not quite there and not quite converting what that actual race pace can do for them off the race starts. Miami will be the first indicator whether the break has changed that for them. And then the final story heads back to Japan and one of the most relieved men in the Honda paddock, and that is Honda Racing president. Now, he said after the Japanese Grand Prix, he had never wished so hard for a car to simply finish a race. GP fans reported the comments. Motorsport Week also covered the Honda chief engineer's assessment. His words were a bit more measured. He said, today in Suzuka, we completed the full race distance with Fernando's car, which is a first good step in terms of reliability. And this is where Honda and Aston Martin currently are right now, just finishing a Grand Prix, not scoring, not competing. Their aim is just to finish a race. Now, Alonso, as we know, started 21st. He finished P18 and a lap down on Kimi Antonelli. Stroll retired on lap 30 with a suspected water pressure issue. The vibrations that affected both drivers all season were described by Alonso as manageable at Suzuka. They were still there, but manageable enough to finish. It might have been something to do with the fact he didn't do FP1 because, of course, Jack Crawford stepped in, but still, he managed to finish a Grand Prix, which for Aston Martin is a massive achievement. Now, Fernando went on to describe these vibrations in a bit more detail. He told the media on Saturday that they were 80% better on Friday, but they then came back. It seems a little bit random with how they're occurring. Honda say they understand the cause, the fixes are incremental for now, and they will be launching a more significant reliability update when we come back for Miami. Aston Martin and Cadillac are, of course, joint bottom in the constructors' standings, both on 0 points after 3 races for 2026. Adrian Newey's first Aston Martin car, Honda's engine, a Aston Martin works package, neither are working anywhere close to their potential. Aston Martin and Honda will, of course, be a team that is going to welcome the break with open arms as they try and solve the issues that have plagued them for 2026. So, Coulthard has told Russell to forget about being teammates and start winning the championship. Andrea Senna has told the FIA that they've got to fix qualifying before anyone else gets hurt. Gasly has told everyone else to calm down and the regulations aren't as bad as people are saying. Hulkenberg has shown that Audi have pace, just not off the start. And Honda's president said a prayer at the circuit that Honda built just so they could finish a race. The problems are not going anywhere, and neither is your Formula One news. This is your Espresso news for today. Everything is linked in the description, and I will see you once again for tomorrow's news.